happens. All right, well, welcome to Fashion Illustration. I am your instructor, Julianne Brown. Today we're going to talk about motion. So far we've been drawing figures that are pretty boring. They're just kind of standing there, and that's fine. That is a way to communicate clothes on a body. But it's more interesting to look at clothes with a little bit of motion. And that motion could be just a little invisible wind. So here are two figures that are just drawn with some shading. There's no color added. You can see the outfits, the flat sketches in the back of what was supposed to be displayed on the body. And you'll see that on the left-hand side that the skirt is being kicked up off the page, obviously. But it's cool because we can see, oh, there's a lot of volume there at that hem. That hem is with a little bit of wind is kind of pushing between the legs and it's kicking up behind. So it's something that I think is fun to use in drawing fashion figures, especially if you have something that's voluminous. So we're going to look at a couple examples of different illustrators, and then we're going to start doing a drawing on a walking figure. So I believe you both have your walking figure template. It looks like this. So you will need this shortly for us to draw on. But for real quick, let me find a couple examples. So I screenshotted this off of a site that I follow. Or maybe I don't follow this one. I can't remember. Fashion Illustration. I follow a few. So this style of illustrating is something that you guys can explore in your future work. So this artist understands how the body works, and they know where everything is proportionally, but they have done what's called deductive, like it's pared down to just the strongest elements in order to convey the image. So literally there's no face, there's no hands, it kind of doesn't matter. What's cool is that this image, because the way they've drawn the stripes, really shows us that this figure's walking. They have wide leg pants. We see that from the split in between. And they're in motion. So a lot of movement there. And I just love it because it's so simplified. And that is something that you can play with in your work. Once you understand all the mechanics of where the elbow bends, where the hands end, size of the head compared to the body, those kind of things, then you can start really exploring some stylistic choices. Here's another one. This is an older illustration from one of my books. This figure is also in motion, so it's another walking figure. And you can see that the skirt is kicking up on the right there, and her foot is in the air, and it's telling us that she's in motion. And I even love it. You can see the roundness of her pockets to show that her hands are on the inside. I love that. Okay, I think I have one more. So again, these are kind of pared down. The figure on the right here is walking away from us. She's wearing a very interesting and kind of risque looking outfit. I do remember this fashion collection. I'm pretty sure it was Dior back in the 2000s. They did a runway show that looked just like this. So it must be from that. Because this is David Doughton, and he is an illustrator who works at the shows. They invite him to sit in the gallery with all of the editors, and he gets to draw the models as they're going by, which is fascinating because that you have to work really fast in order to be able to catch that. So it means his choices are pared down to really just the important elements. So I'm kind of driving that point home. All right. So that's motion. Let's let's look at an actual figure from a runway. So here is a figure on the left, all in color. She is in motion. Her leg is coming forward. You can see her shoe is up and back, showing us kind of the top of the shoe. And what I like to do sometimes, if I know I'm going to do some shading and I'm working from a reference photo, I will actually change that photo to a black and white image because it makes it easier to see the highlights once we take the color out. So it's easy to see where the blackest black is and the whitest white to show the difference between all those shades of gray in between to show where the light is catching and where things are falling into shadow, giving us what I said before, the value scale. So we're going to draw this image on our walking figure as our reference. I think I have one more figure to show that's in, yeah, this one's in motion too. This is Ashley. Oh, I can't remember her last name. She's a plus size model, very famous. Anyway, I love this photo. I mean, this drawing because it's, I drew this from a photograph, but I love the photograph because her hair was just like a big wild mess. I think she must have flipped her head up and the photographer caught her with her hair all lifted up like that. And it's just, it's just cool. I loved it. So I had to draw it. All right. So that's my little talk about motion. Here is our reference. And I'm just going to actually let's look at the gray side. Okay, I'm gonna have to close it from this side and move it over. Boop. All right, there's one. And let me pull this off so we can have it separated. And I'll make this bigger so you guys can see both. Okay. You'll notice that she has the same foot up and back as our walking figure. Let me see if I can get them a little closer in size to each other. There we go. Okay. So we're actually going to draw this outfit on our fashion figure. You guys are going to take a piece of paper, if you can, and put it over the top so that you can see the figure underneath. That allows you to not draw the entire body. It just use the body as a reference underneath as to where the landmarks of the body are as a guide. So I am going to draw virtually on my separate piece of paper. And I am going to actually pretend I have a paper here by filling one in and then lightening it a bit. I did this with my student the other day and it seemed to help. So we can just see that figure under there, kind of grayish, because I'm going to be drawing on top with my pencil in black. So we can hopefully see the difference. Okay. So actually, let me zoom in on this blouse. What is happening on this blouse? I don't even know what that neckline's doing. What is that? Let's look at the color one. Okay, so we have some buttons here. We have a loop there. Oh, I see. It's like one of those like those cheongsam dresses that come from China that have that diagonal closure and they usually have buttons all the way across. This is like that. And they've added an extra collar and they have it unbuttoned in the middle. So that's why we have this gap. So there are a couple buttons up here and loops on this side. And it looks like they've connected it with some sort of, I'm going to call that a tchotchke of some kind. Okay, so at least we know what's going on there. And you know what? I'll leave this color one up for us. Make it a little smaller there so we can see that sleeve. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a bit over here on my figure and get ready to draw. Um, so I have some choices to make. My figure has hair draping over both shoulders. So because this is my template underneath, I can choose to change that or leave it. In this case, I think I'm going to leave it on the right side of her hair and let that kind of drape over. But this left side, I'm going to kick it behind her shoulder so that I can actually show this collar, because that is the detail here. And if someone hired me to draw this collar, they'd probably want to see it. Okay, so knowing that, I'm actually going to sketch a little bit of my figure first, so that I know where they're at on this page. And if you didn't want to draw the face, you would just draw your nose line and your eye line, which is a little kicked up. It's a little back. Her chin is up in the air. The bottom of her chin is actually right there. So you can do that. You can draw the face later, or you can do it today. Up to you. But right now we're going to draw the clothes. Okay, so I'm going to draw in her hair on this side. So I can find this edge of the neck and that little shoulder line there. Okay, with this side, I actually have to kind of make it up. So the way I'm going to do that is I know that this muscle goes from this ear down to this pit of the neck, right? So I'm going to draw my other side of my neck here and curve down into that shoulder and connect it to this shoulder over here as my guideline. So I'm probably going to draw over some of this, but I need some kind of guideline to know where to put this collar. So let's see. Let me get rid of this girl. Yeah, that's enough. That'll work. Okay. So with collars, the most important part is that they feel like they go around that neck. So we have curves that curve in and point towards the back of that neck. We're only going to see, well, we'll see it on the other side a little bit too, because we have this little gap here. So the most important thing is we're going to have, looks like 2 sections that come from one point on each side, because we have 2 edges of collars here. So I'm going to reach up on this neck. I'm going to reach up fairly high, and I'm going to round out and push down. Let me make her figure underneath a little lighter there. Okay, so you guys can see this, and I'll get a little closer. Okay, so I have some roundness here at the top, and I'm just angling down here. And then I'm going to reach up above that and connect for my next collar. And I'm looking at the angle of my reference. My angle is vertical here of this collar. So we literally connect at the back here, and I'm going to go straight down. So now I have 2 edges. We can put a point on that first edge and have it start trailing to the left there. Now this back part of the collar, we need to have this angle. Notice that there is a very obvious angle that reaches from her neck to her shoulder. And there's usually full of a little bit of air because it's the underneath part of the collar that is folding over and therefore creating some air under there. And then I actually look at the shape of the collar. So let me get a little closer here. So I actually look at this shape. It's like a diamond shape or a triangle shape. Like I just try to figure out what shape it is that I'm seeing so that I can draw a similar shape over on my side. So it's pretty long to the left, and then it rises up as it reaches towards that bottom of that folded edge. Okay, we have one side of our collar. Now we can erase. If you had put in, oh, let me get a different eraser. I was drawing the other day and needed my block eraser, but I certainly don't need it today. Okay. Hang on, let me do this one. There. Okay, so I'm just erasing that bit of the shoulder now that is concealed by this collar before I go to the other side of the neck. So the other side of the neck, I want this collar to appear like it's coming out of the other side. So I need to reach across in a similar height. And that's where I'm going to start drawing that curve around and down. And hers does this little jog at the bottom. There's like a little S curve there in our reference. I'm going to do a little racing of her hair in my way. And then I'm going to reach up to the second collar, which sits above that. So that reaches up a little higher. And again, it needs to come down. Well, let's do the inside edge first, which is this nice big curve. So it's really curving, and then it kind of meets up with that S at the bottom. And then to make this angle, we reach towards the top of that curve, angle down, and we're not going to see, let me erase that, there we go. We're not going to see very much of this collar because, well, I guess her hair is not going to cover it. We might lose the corner, but let's see. I might have enough room. I'm erasing some of her neck here that I don't need. You guys don't have to erase because you're on a template, hopefully. All right, so again, I'm looking at this shape, this, it's like a sail, isn't it? It's a triangle, but it has this nice curve at the bottom, and then it dips down towards the left. So let's see if I can do it from the bottom and then dip down and then try to connect those sides. Okay, so I just made it, still having her hair run into it right there. This is rather a complex collar, so this one takes a lot of observation. All right, so we have two sides to our collar now. We're going to add this little part that comes across, and it's just sticking out, so it's going across the front of the body there. And then in hers, it just sort of dips down and makes this shape. So I'm looking over here at this shape. Like, what shape is this? It's like an eyeball sideways, I guess, or it's a leaf shape. Look, it's a leaf shape. Ah, leaf shape. That's easier to think about. So that's more narrow at the ends and wider at the sides, and then it goes to a point. So I'm always determining with my eyes, what shape is that? Okay. So now we're starting to get that front edge of this whole collar going across here. And we're going to continue down. Now we know that this blouse is not tight to the body. If I move it over, let's look at the other side. Yeah, there's a little bit of fold there. There's a little bit of ease, a little room. So I know it's not going to be exactly against the body on this side. So I'm thinking about that because it's like, where am I going with this line? Well, I'm going to put a dot here as my plan of how far I'm going. And then this edge is just going to rise a bit. And then head down to that spot. So now we've created a little bit of ease in our blouse. And you can see I always work top down. I always work from the neck down the body. So I usually do neck and then sleeves and then body. So that's where I'm going next. Sleeves. Okay. So we have this very strange line here. I'm not sure what that is. I don't think that's a dart. I don't know what that is, but there is a set in shoulder. So she does have, her sleeve is sewn on here at the shoulder line. We can see it on both sides, and the shoulder line is connected way out at the very edge of that shoulder. So that is what I'm going for. I'm going to look at my figure's shoulder. I know it's a little different. And then for where I'm starting, and then I'm looking at my reference for where I'm ending. Okay, so it comes at an angle to the right, And there is maybe a slight curve at the bottom showing like the roundness of how that armhole is attached. And so I know it's going to have to connect close to my side of blouse here. I'm going to add a little bit of corner here to the front edge of my blouse so that I know where I'm headed. And my shoulder is where I'm coming from. Let's see, we're going to dip down first. Oh, maybe not that much. And then curve in. So there's one. Now I can make this top edge of this shoulder a little stronger because the blouse is actually sitting on the shoulder because of gravity. Okay, our other sleeve, our other shoulder, it's just going to angle here and then reach towards that body. And maybe a little less. I'm going to have mine float out away from the body just a little bit. So I had changed my mind there, thinking, right, my blouse is kind of loose fitting. I don't want it to hit all the way to the rib cage. All right, let's do this sleeve. Luckily, it is bent just like our model, our reference here, which is so convenient. Our brains don't have to work too hard here. We're going to go down the sleeve, starting at the shoulder and travel along the top part of the arm here until that elbow. And I don't know how I made this little blip in mine. I'm going to see if I can straighten that out a bit. Okay. Before I move on to the bottom part of the arm, I'm actually going to connect the upper part of my sleeve. I actually like what hers is doing. It's running, it's going at an angle and then it's running into another fold line that's dropping down. I actually like the way that looks. So I'm going to see if I can duplicate it. Maybe I'll draw this angle first, and then I'll connect behind and have this run into that. Because that visually makes it twist. I think that looks pretty cool. I actually also like this other line, this fold line that's coming through and then around this elbow a little bit. So I'm going to copy that as well. Okay, so whenever the elbow is bent, we get pinches and folds inside this top part of the elbow. And in this case, it's making all the fold lines rise and arc over the roundness of this arm. So we can see the roundness of this arm because we have it on our template. So we're just going to follow a similar shape, rising here. And then let's establish the bottom part of the arm. So it looks pretty close to the top part of the arm because of gravity. And then from the elbow, it's going to come off the body just a little bit. So we're going to give this a little ease, a little room, and head down this arm. Now you can see she has this huge sleeve. It's a bell-shaped sleeve, meaning her sleeve end is wider than the top part. Let's look at the other sleeve for a second. Let me go over here. Yeah, oh, there is a seam. There's a little seam there. Okay. So I bet the seam is right here. It's just in the highlight. We probably can't see it. So that's good information. Luckily, we have two sleeves to compare. Okay, so as I'm headed down this arm over here, I think the first thing I want to do is establish this shape at the front. So I'm going to skip this back part. I want to get this front part. My hand is in a slightly different shape. So I could either choose to draw my hand like my reference and put the bag in her arm, or we could use the one that's on our template. I'm going to go with our template for now because it's a little bit of brain work. And I think it's good for you guys to see like how you would figure that out. So I'm actually going to draw a line in this gap, reaching towards the back of this hand. And I am still going to come down and try to see this corner and then capture the rest of this just as it is. So that means there's a little corner at the top, and then I'm going to sweep down And then there's going to be a straighter part connecting from the back of the hand. So my hand is in here. Draw my fingers a little bit. So that we can establish the length, the volume of this piece. And it looks like I should round it back here at the back, maybe a little more there. So here's why I left this gap, because I'm going to have to sort out like where my folds go, since mine is a little bit different than hers, and also that it's going to have a seam over the back of that. And maybe I go a little less right here, little adjustment. Have that run into that sleeve there. And I'm going to create a fold just behind it on both sides that'll be similar in shape to hers, to the reference. A little fold to show that there's some collapse there. It's not exactly like this one, but it's more like this upper arm. So you can make folds, I mean, fabric folds, let me tell you, in many different ways. So you'll start learning to observe those things and try different things out. All right, one side done, good enough. We can go back in here later and add a little bit more detail, but we just want the outside silhouette kind of figured out. Okay, we have a bent arm and she has a straight one. But now we already have kind of experience figuring out, let me make this figure a little wider, figuring out how to do that, what that's going to look like. So we're going to travel along the top part of the arm because we know gravity would make it stick here. And we're going to get to the elbow and stop. And then we know that the inside of the arm, we're going to have it stand away from that arm a little bit and then have some sort of collapsing line down. It gives a little bit of that twist. So we're kind of copying this kind of same approach that we did to the other side. The difficulty in this one is that this arm is bent in a way that we're looking down the cylinder. So the cylinder, picture yourself with a telescope in front of your eye. That is what the arm is doing right now. So it's wider at the back, more narrow at the front, but it's shortened in length because it is coming at us. That's really challenging, but I think we're up for it. I'll show you how I'm going to solve it for me. I'm going to start with my cuff first and then work my way back. So I know that that cuff has a split over the hand and gravity is going to hold it tight to the top of that hand. I know that I'm going to have a corner here and it's going to scoop back. Now it could scoop forward or back. I'm going to have this one. I'm going to try it scooping back and see if I like it. So let me see. I need it to look the same length as my other one. So I'm comparing these visually. Do I think that that looks similar? Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good stopping point. So I'm going to add my roundness at the back to show it's going around that wrist. That's where that seam line actually would be. And I'm going to have mine kind of run from there down. Now I could, let's see, what if I do this? What if I show the inside of this cuff a little bit and have it taper off into that corner? And this would be in shadow. Do I like the way that looks? Well, I think it needs to drip down a little more in this corner. I feel like it's a little flat. I feel like I want this part to have a little bit more curved down. I like that better. That feels like the other cuff, right? Let me fill this side in so we can compare. Yeah. Okay, so we got the design element. We got the split at the top, and we got the kind of droopiness, and we have the seam in the back. So now we have to follow the shape of the arm that's already there, but we can have the fabric rise up and kind of kick around over that to show that it's collapsing back into that elbow area. And then it is going to fall off this elbow a bit. And then it's going to rise up towards that sleeve. And we just create a shape here. We don't know what this is actually going to do. So you just have to play with things. You can try a scoop to the right. We can try a scoop to the left. We can try a combination. You just keep putting marks down until you think that it looks convincing. I don't know. I think, let's see. Maybe that would work. Maybe like a drag, a pull underneath. I'm going to leave that one for mine. Maybe I'll scoop, I'll turn the end of this shape a little towards that elbow. Okay, so that's how you kind of solve these things out. I'm actually going to erase it. I'm going to try one more. I'm not loving that either. So this is what I do. I just keep playing with shapes until I have one that I like better. Okay, I like that. That has more roundness. I like that better. Okay, so I need to block in the top of my hand, my fingers here. I can't draw today. I think I say that every week. Drawing in the computer is a whole different skill than drawing with a pencil. I'm drawing on a tablet. It's kind of a different skill set. And one that I have to admit, I'm not completely used to, even though I do it all the time. Okay. So this hand looks bigger than the other one because it's far more forward and we're seeing more of it than the other hand. All right, so now we have to do the silhouette of the width of our blouse. I guess this is a dart here. So there is a dart that's coming up from the bottom, and then there's just some billowing as it's being squeezed into this waistband. So the first thing we need to figure out is where is the waistband of our skirt. So assuming that her hand is sitting on the narrowest part of her body, the place where it bends, I'm going to say the skirt is at that spot, which would be the high waist. On our figure here, we have a little belly button there. Usually the belly button is just below the waist, the break. So I'm going to put a line there. That's my reference to where my blouse is going to tuck into my skirt. And I'm going to reach up towards the junction here of my sleeve, because that's where the blouse connects, and have it push towards this body, and then it's going to billow out as it gets shoved into that skirt and under this hand. And maybe I want a little more billow than I put, so I'm going to go and add a little more. And the other side, we're not going to really see the billow much because the hand is in the way. So we can have an angle come down. We can have a similar collapse. Oh, actually, theirs is the opposite. Let me see if I can add my bubble on the outside. Oh, it makes it look too wide. I don't love that either. I think I'm going to go back to my original. Let's see. Nope. I just tried to Control Z and that didn't fix it. Okay, so I just need my drawing tool and I'm going to do this. I just like the way that looks better. It's not like my reference, but to me, it gives it that twist that she would be getting from walking. Okay, so we'll go back and do the rest of the folds later. We're just establishing the fit. So we have our waist and our blouse is mostly done. Okay, so now we're going to work on the skirt. Let me zoom out a bit on both so we can get a look at it. Okay, we have a split over the leg. We have what length? So we see this kicking up into space. I'm going to put some sketchy lines out in space here just to give me an idea of like where I'm headed. And also the length is kind of at this, well, actually, well, her foot is higher than our models, but the skirt, if it were to go through, is going to go kind of below the knee here somewhere. So I'm just putting some sketchy lines on my page so I have an idea of the length of the skirt before I start drawing it. And the other important line here, or strong element, is that split, right, where her leg is coming through. So I'm actually looking at her leg and the shape that it's making at the top here, this very sharp triangle. And so I'm going to try to carve our leg out to look very similar. So I have to decide how high up it is. Let's see, is it at the crotch? Yeah, probably. I see the seam of her sleeve here, which I would probably be at the wrist, which we know is at the widest part of the hip, which is at the crotch. So it's probably just below that. So you see how I'm reasoning these things out? That's what I do when I'm looking at a reference. So I'm putting a dot on my thigh, and I'm going to see if I can copy this angle to the right here. So that's the outside corner of the thigh, and then this inside corner points and goes in the opposite direction, but it has the very slight roundness around this thigh. Notice that it rises up as it gets to this junction of the thigh. So I want to have that roundness there before I get to this point. That makes it feel like it's wrapping over the top of that thigh. Okay. So did I get my point high enough, far enough? Well, I feel like my reference is actually a little farther to the right than mine. So if you want to make an adjustment, you can. If you like where yours is, you just leave it. I'm going to probably adjust mine over just a bit. Let's see if I like that better. I do. Because now to me, it looks like this style line, which comes down the hip here, is headed in the right spot. So if I were to connect this to where this skirt is actually closing and have it reach up towards this waistline, and I compare the two, yeah, I think that's more similar in position. So I'm glad I moved that point over a bit. All right, so we don't have to draw every line here. You're looking at this pleated skirt and going, oi, that's a lot of stuff to draw. We're going to draw the outside first, the outside edges, and then we're going to pick and choose what we want to draw on the inside. So first, let's finish the left side of our skirt and move mine up. So this is kind of nice. There's this nice kick out of roundness here. So it seems like it's round, kind of where her thigh, you know, like it's round in the upper thigh area. So that would be kind of the outside edge of our roundness peak. And I'm going to have my skirt go behind her sleeve. So knowing that, I'm kind of kicking up into that sleeve, trying to capture that width that I've established with my mark, and then pushing back towards the knee or the bottom here. So this is a nice round shape. That's a nice movement shape, a little bit of roundness. Okay, so we have the outside kind of basic edge. Now we can kind of define it a little more if you want. I see I'm going over here and I'm looking at my reference and I'm seeing, okay, so maybe this line actually turns like this, and there's a little ribbon that sticks out here, and there's a little corner. And if I erase this little bit here, then I'll have room to put this nice sharp corner, because this is a pleated skirt. So I want to have this little jaggedy bit at the bottom that's above the foot there. And I'm ignoring all my little sketchy marks for now. I'll erase them later. But I like having this strong jagged edge because that shows us, oh, it's pleated, or there's something going on there with that jag. So let's scoot over to the other side and do this great shape. Look at this shape. It's so fun. Okay. So notice that where our jag comes out on the left, it's going to kind of connect up on the right. It's rising up into a shape there. And there's a strong corner that passes that. Then we have it's like an L. Look at the L shape. And then we have a little corner there. And we have a little, we're still rising up in general. And then we have some show of pleat with a little zigzag. Now we have a little dip. This is actually where the front edge of the skirt is kicking back. And so we're seeing inside and the back side. So we're kind of seeing two views here. So there's going to be a line going in front. And then lots of jags back and forth until we get to that corner. Now you notice that I reached that point where I had put it on my sketching, but you see that this line coming from the thigh down, it doesn't exactly go where it's supposed to. Oh, actually it does. Well, I lucked out on that one. It doesn't always. So if it doesn't on yours, no big deal. You just make an adjustment. You would just do what I have been doing, which is erase it and adjust it. Let's see. So this red line goes to this little part that's sticking out here. And then this purple line reaches farther up on the thigh. So I'm going to connect this one first because I can see that's where it's headed. And then this purple is where I see I need to make the adjustment because this angle's not quite right. But it's going to go from kind of up here towards the thigh and reach into that corner, meaning I'll have to erase this little bit here. Okay, while I have my eraser out, I'll clean up some of this stuff while you guys are catching up. I know that's a lot of shapes at the bottom to capture, and it doesn't matter if you capture them exactly like your reference. No one's going to check your work. The point is to be believable. So it doesn't, if things don't line up exactly like your reference, it is not a big deal. We're not looking to copy, we're looking to capture the essence. Okay. Although it helps to copy, like copying is a way that we learn. So drawing by copying is a fantastic way to learn because you're still drawing and practicing and therefore learning. Okay, I'm reaching up to the hip now and I'm going to try to establish this outside edge. I notice that it's coming from the hip, has a little bump here by the sleeve, or the sleeve in the picture anyway, coming down, and then there's a little dip, and I have two other bumps here at the bottom. So kind of a long angle and two bumps. So that's what I'm going to try to do. There's my long angle, a short bump, and a longer bump. I think it's too wide. I'm going to change it. I like it better. Okay, so I made an adjustment because the reason why I did that is because if I continue to make it kind of out here, it makes it just look square. It's more interesting that it has this push in, this negative space. this kind of adds to the motion, seeing this strong angle here. So I changed mine to look a little more like the reference because I like that has that space there. It makes it look more like it's a motion. Okay, I'm going to zoom out and just take a look at the motion that I've created. Let me make this line out here a little stronger because apparently it's still sketchy and light, so I can see that outside shape. Okay, let's compare it to our reference. So what's interesting to me is that her skirt feels longer than mine. And that could be because mine feels wider in the middle here because I captured this roundness so wide over here. I actually think it's not helping me. Like maybe I need to shave this off a little bit on this side. So I'm going to try that and see if I like it better. So I'm just going to redo this one area. And maybe I'll take it much closer to the waist. Maybe I'll actually have my waist be on the edge of this hip and then kick out with a little width and then come back in. I like that better. It just seems to look not so blocky and square. Now the skirt seems longer than it was. It's a lot to think about, isn't it? All right. Let me draw a little bit of this leg so that we can have it coming out here in the front. Since it is pretty strong element of this picture, that leg coming forward is exciting to see out of all this red. To see that leg coming forward out of there is visually impactful. Okay, so I'm going to get down to the ankle part and I'm going to stop there. And I can even block out the back leg just a little bit. Okay. All right. So here's where you get to pick and choose as the illustrator what you want to capture. I definitely want to capture the seaming that is going on around the waist. So all these vertical seams, notice they're not just vertical. They go at an angle slightly around this hip. So they may seem a little wider at the bottom, depending on how you draw them. You just need to decide where they're going to stop. So you can even put a couple little dots along your hip line across this drawing, just to give yourself a visual cue of where you're going to stop and start drawing in some of your lines. Now, you don't have to draw all of them. You can make some of them shorter and longer. You can make some of them disappear. So the choice is yours to play with. But I at least want to show a few next to each other. And actually, I kind of need to make an adjustment here because look what I did. I'm right at the edge. And if I add one more, I'm going to have this really skinny spot and I want them to look a little more regular. So what I'm going to do, I have a kind of a big space right here. I'm going to erase these and I'm going to start from this inside edge. Oh, which I'm now erasing. Whoops, I need that one. Okay, that's my edge. So I'm going to try to establish it from there, the width of my seams. See if I can sort this out to the way they look a little more even. Ah, there, perfect. That'll work. And then I can continue on over here. And do I want to draw all of them? Maybe not. I'll leave some of them looking kind of short. So again, those are choices we can make. All right. So I have all that. I can erase all these little guidelines at the bottom. Okay. Now comes the fun part. Look at all this stuff. So for this to not be overwhelming, I mean, you could pick it all out just like Riley did with all those lights and all those darks with markers, and that is its own challenge in itself. But when we are just drawing, capturing it with some basic line, you just want to look for the strongest lines, the lines that seem the most important. So definitely inside this thigh, there is a strong vertical leading into this strong horizontal. So that's my first line I'm going to capture. So let's see, there is a, maybe from this bottom of this pleat. Let's see, what is this doing? Yeah, okay, so this one actually does, it starts at the top and it goes in a round shape towards that knee. Where am I ending? Kind of at this knee down here. So I put a little mark down there. As you know, I always like to know where I'm going, where I'm starting and where I'm going when I'm drawing. Okay, so there's that curve. And then this next one has this little blip on both sides, has a scoop. I kind of like that scoop. And I kind of like this wavy thing that's going on at the one next to it. And as you can see, they just get wavier from there. So now I'm just looking for like strong shapes, but I want to feel like I'm still going around that thigh. So looking for shapes here that feel like they're wrapping. So I'm just going to do that. I'm stopping there. You guys can do more. Now I'm looking at this longer side of the skirt, this side. Is there anything that travels from the top to the bottom? Well, it kind of disappears, but there is a big S curve through here. So let me do that one. So this way and then around. And did I get it exactly like this? No, I don't care. I see a vertical. I see some ziggy shapes through here. I see whatever shapes you see that you think are important. There's a split here. There's a split there. Okay, so that's enough for me. That's plenty. I can see that this is a pleated skirt that's opening. I probably do want to capture from the bottom since I put these nice points. It's nice to have a line go into those points from the bottom. There we go. Even over here. Okay, so let's move to the other side. So let's get this view. All right, so we have the outside edge of the skirt tucking in behind this edge that's kicking up. So these lines are going to head down into this space and kind of disappear. And I have this little fold. So I'm going to continue down on that and I'm going to leave that as is. And then the inside of the skirt, this little section that's sticking out that we created, we do have to have that inner edge connecting somewhere so that it seems like it's whole. So it reaches up and it's connecting into this rounded edge. That's where it's actually folding and flipping over. So I want to make sure I connect that inner edge so we see that. It also would be helpful because if we go to shade the inside of this, we might want to color the inside of the skirt darker and keep this part lighter just to make them more obvious that they're different planes. Okay, so I'm going to go inside this section and pick out these angles, and notice they're all diagonal. So this is easy. We can just make some diagonal shapes, have them connect to your points at the bottom though. That makes it feel more like a accordion skirt here. Oh, that one has a slight angle to it. Let me try that. And you can use, notice that I'm also using heavier line and thicker line. So I like to vary my line quality. instead of making everything the same, it's a little more interesting when I use different amounts of pressure on my pencil, creating different weights on my page, and it just makes it more interesting to look at. All right. So I have to zoom out, but you guys can just hold your drawing at arm's length if you want it to get a visual of how it's coming together. Let me get rid of my figure underneath so we can just look at what I've got. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I feel as visually, I feel like I filled in the bottom part of the skirt a little too much. Like as a choice, I think I'm going to erase some of this because it looks very busy. So I'm going to get to that after. But the first thing we need to do is go back up to the blouse and add any of these fold lines or details that we see that would make this seem more like it's a real drapey fabric, which it is. So let's head up to this blouse. Notice these two fold lines around the neck that are coming down at an angle from the collar, and they're sweeping down towards the bust. The bust, we can see it on both sides, is pushing out. So our fold lines are going to stop before they get to that point, literally that point. So that tells you where you're going to stop. And see if you can capture this these diagonals. There's one kind of really more diagonal than the other. And the bottom edge of this fold has a nice scoop to it. So I see two lines if I'm just looking at the darker lines. You can, there is a little third one up here around that keyhole. And it can even come down the other side of the keyhole if you want. And you can, you can use a little shading if you want that to look even darker, just using your pencil, or you can do it later with a little bit of gray marker. Okay. I'm not going to worry about these slight pulls at the top of the shoulder. I'm more concerned about a little bit more information going on down here on the sleeve. So I'm looking for some shapes and folds. Maybe there's this little loop that's happening inside her sleeve. I like that. I'm going to copy that. And any other things here that I think would be interesting. No, I don't like that one. Let's see. So I'm shading the bottom part of my arm a little bit to show it that's in shadow. And then do I want to do anything to my other sleeve? I could get a little fold line here pulling and twisting. I kind of like that. It's not in my example because her arm is straight, but with a really bent arm like that, you might get more twist. We've already established some twists underneath this arm, this bent arm. And then the other thing I'm going to do is show that this blouse is tucked into this shirt. Oh, I forgot the darts. I bet there's a dart on each side. So the dart reaches up towards the bust line, but it's underneath it. And it's going to tuck into the waist. There. And then we will have, you can have fold lines go through that dart. You can even have some loops to show that that's tucked in to the waistband. Okay, that's a little more helpful. Let me look without the figure. Yeah. I drew her clavicle because this figure has a nice strong clavicle. Okay. So before we move on to, I'm going to erase some of the things out of my skirt, but I want to finish the feet. So we can decide to make our shoes like the model, or we can choose to keep our shoes as our template. I'm going to follow the model. and see if I can get shoes to look like hers. They look like slides, or maybe they're slingbacks. We can't see the back, but there's nothing around the ankle. So I can either choose to try to copy this foot in front, which I could, or which I'm going to do. I'm going to bring this all down, and it's wider at the bottom. And then it points very strongly towards us in the front. So there I've established the bottom edge and the side edge. And with this foot in back, this foot is smaller because it's away from us in space, but it is still going to be wider at the side and point down at the bottom also. And then because this foot is coming toward us, you notice that all the lines at the round the shoe are rising up. They are going up over the top of the toe box. Let me get a little closer and show you what I mean. So I have this rounded shape. Actually, let me move my point over just a hair. There we go. And that's the beginning, I guess, of a buckle. We have a buckle kicking over to one side. And then there's a rounded shape kind of behind that. And then there's a little tiny, oh, actually we need rounded shapes around the edges. That's where the foot is going into it. And then we need the tongue. So there's a tongue and it is rising up. It's going across the top of the foot. So everything is still rising. Whenever you're looking at the front of a foot coming towards you, all the curves at the front are always going to rise up. So there's that. And I think that's enough information there. And then our back one, we're going to draw this, but it's going to be a much smaller version. We're barely going to see much just because this foot is on our, we see more of her foot than we do on our reference. So as long as we capture that curve and then a little bit of that tongue and some of that buckle on this one side, it should be believable enough. Okay. So I have my shoes. I'm going to erase some of my lines. Like it's just too busy in here for me personally. I'd like it broken up a little bit more. So let me just get rid of a little bit of stuff here. And maybe I'll get rid of this part too. Make these just a little lighter. Okay, that just feels better to me. It's not all the way filled in. That's like drawing hair and filling in every single strand. It's just too much. Just capture the shape and then choose the strongest lines. All right. I'm not going to bother adding a face to mine because we can do that later. You guys can do that later on your own. It'll give you face practice. Oh, I forgot to add the feathers on the back of her heels. Oh, whoops, what I do. Okay, let me go ahead and add that. So to do feathers, they're just soft little shapes. You look at the curve coming off the back and you capture the strongest angles and then the light and dark parts. And maybe a little bit of the outside edge. And then a little bit on this side. So very sketchy when I do feathers. Nice to do it in pencil. You can do it in watercolor. and then add a little bit of pencil on top, which looks really nice actually. I do talk a lot about art materials and because I like using them. I like old school mixed with new school. Okay. So there is her feather. A little bit of feather there. All right. Okay, so how did that go for everyone? Were you able to follow along and keep up with me as I drew? Yeah, okay. All right, great.
Can we show our work?
Yes, I love to see your work. That's one of my favorite parts of class. Okay, I put you on spotlight because you said it first.
Oh my goodness.
Let me see, how'd it go? So before you show me, tell me with words, what came easy and what was the challenge?
The skirt part, like figuring out the pleat parts, the lines for the pleat parts, and the collar, the different parts of the collar. That was a lot.
Were the challenging parts?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a part that came easier for you now that you've been drawing for a while?
The feathers.
Mm,
No, I'm just playing.
I like that actually.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. I think just the tracing.
Okay. All right. Okay, you gonna share? Let's see. Oh, nice job.
Looks great.
Yeah, it does look great.
Thank you.
You should feel proud. This looks fantastic.
Thank you. I have
Okay.
to tell you too that I did do those feathers before you mentioned them because I was like, ooh, feathers.
That's right. Riley, you don't know this, but in a past class, Marie sent me a picture of a feathered shoe and she wanted to know how to draw it. So we covered that in a previous class. Okay. Thank you for sharing. All right. Riley, are you able to share?
Yeah.
What you've
Okay.
drawn?
So just a bit of a preface. I
Yeah.
don't think I have the drawing that you started off with, the motion one.
Oh, darn. I thought I sent that to everyone last week. I apologize.
No worries. I mean, I might have gotten it in an email as a drawing, but I didn't draw it. So anyway,
I had it from another class.
Oh, my apologies. I send a lot of things to a lot of students. I thought I had sent that to you guys. I should have made sure before I started this class. Okay.
No worries. So during week 1, I did do an in motion like woman, but like looking back on it, I'm definitely not happy with it. So anyway, I used that one, but she was in a different pose. So like, I think the challenging thing for me was trying to go backwards because she was basically leaning to another direction.
Yes, that is a lot of brain work.
Yeah, and then the arms were in a totally different position. So I was trying to figure out like where the folds would be. But anyway, this is, oh, you probably can't, it's, oh my gosh. I don't know if you'll be able to actually see it.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, I can right there.
Okay.
Move a little forward. Yeah, oh, right there. Oh yeah, okay. You know what's cool about yours is that it feels like her hands are being covered, which I actually really like.
Okay, let me put I took away the background of it, the actual figure. There's where her hands would be. So they are kind of covered.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so what's working for me, what's working well is that your sleeves, pull it forward a little bit. Let me see. Your sleeves feel like they really are around those arms and then draping off the bottom. That's really successful. Yeah, no, this is great.
Yeah, so her proportions were a little off, so that made things a little like I definitely can tell a difference with where I am like sketching my figures now versus then, because I feel like I need to redo this one.
Okay, well, it's, practice makes progress. That's why we're here. I have one more comment on your drawing. Was she wearing a head thing or was her hair just really tight to her head?
When I sketched her, she didn't have any hair. So
Got it.
I
Okay.
just kind of guessed.
Got it. Okay. So when you revisit that one, if you choose to do so, you might consider a little bit of height to the crown of the head and have the hair come off of it just a little bit, because hair kind of sits away from the body, the skull. And I know that has nothing to do with drawing clothes, but since we're talking about fashion figures as a whole, that's something, it's just a consideration for the future.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, fantastic. Let me see where we're at. We're almost at 5. So we have half an hour. Okay. Let me get myself set up here to actually, I would love to shade this. Do either of you have a gray marker that we could use to do some shading on your drawing today? Yeah. Okay. So let's grab that. I know, Riley, you have markers because you just showed us marker drawing. So I'm going to assume you have them there at your place.
Well, this is on my iPad, so markers aren't an issue either. But I'll just change brushing. It'll be fun.
Yeah, fantastic. That's what I'm going to do because obviously I'm working in a digital environment as well. Okay. So if you have real markers on paper, a gray marker will work great. Because what's really going to make this pop, like this actually pops quite a bit with all this movement. It's so interesting to look at, and then just a figure standing there. But as you remember from, let me show you my previous reference. Let me pull it back up, which is just a drawing plus, whoops, hang on, what did I do? There we go. It's a drawing plus gray marker. So it really makes it stand out. So adding that, that shadow gives our drawings more dimension, because now we can use that gray marker to go into the shadows and the folds of our clothes where we've kind of indicated where it's at with our pencils. Now we're going to make it look even more believable as fabric with some shadow, some light source. Okay. So let's go back to this, and I will make her smaller again so we can have our reference next to it. Okay, let me get this out of the way. There. Okay. Make sure, did I share my screen? No. So let me go to Photoshop. There you go. Now you guys can see what I'm talking about. All right. So I'm going to get my gray marker. Oh, so you guys couldn't see what I was talking about. I had pulled this back up just to show that this was the example of what we're going to do. We're not going to have all of these shearing, this skirt has all these loops and tails at the gather mark. We're not going to have that. But we do have a reference where we can see the darkest parts. And I'm going to go to the black and white one, because guess what? That's going to help us see that even easier. Okay. So let me get a layer here that I can draw on with a gray marker. And let me change my layer. Okay. I need a soft brush. Alrighty. So let's start at the top. Much easier to see it now, right? Look, there's a dark shape on the shoulders. There's definitely some dark shapes. So we're looking for the darkest shapes to put our gray marker. Usually when I am working with students, we decide where the light source is coming from. In this case, we're not going to decide. In this case, we're going to follow the example because that's a different exercise of training your eyes to see it. So because this is a runway show, there are lights coming from all directions, but there's very strong lights coming from the front. So that's why we see this kind of white line zigzagging across the front of her. That's because there is a bright direct light in front. So just keeping that in mind, I'm going to go to the figure over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is shadow the shoulders a little bit and see if I can follow that rounded shape that I see there over that shoulder. And there's a little bit on the other side too. Now her hair is in the way on mine. What's cool about this is it's satin. So whenever satin folds, it gets the highlight right in the center of the crease. So this has this white edge along both collar edges. It's darkest inside that fold. So let me get a little closer. Oh, we never did add the buttons. That's okay. I'll send you this image and you guys can add it later. So I'm going to reach inside this collar and make my darkest edge there on both sides. So that's in between these two collars. There definitely would be shadow because we have two layers. Then the collar edge stays white all the way around, but the rest of it starts going into shadow. So the rest of it away from that rounded edge goes darker so that we have this nice rounded highlight along the top edge of our collar. Okay. So on this inside collar, I do see like a little blip here inside this right side. And then there actually is, oh, I didn't draw the line. There should be a line back here at the back where this gets really dark back here. Okay, let me fix that. I'm actually going to go back and add this line that should be there that I missed. So there is a line inside this collar because this edge should, let's see, this edge should wrap around here. There we go. Apparently I got that wrong on both sides. Goodness. Okay. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm wrapping this around the neck, which somehow I missed when we drew it the first time. But luckily we get to get close up here and I caught it. There, that looks better. So that's wrapping around that neck now. Okay, going back to my shading. All right, so let me get my soft brush and continue on with this gray color. Okay, so notice these folds. Under the left collar here, there's this long fold and it's kind of pointing towards this shape at the front. Mine's actually, my keyhole ended up being a little higher than the reference. So I have to make an adjustment to mine. It's not going to match exactly because I didn't get it in the exact spot. And on the front edge here, we have some folds. So it's basically where you have put your sketchy lines to show the edge of the fold. Now you can build that up to be even stronger with some marker. So I'm going to reach under the collar there. I'm going to assume that this collar is going to have a cast shadow below that curve on each side. No light is getting in there. And then probably this hair would also leave some sort of shadow below since I drew hair on my figure. Okay. So with bust lines, sometimes you get a line going between the two bust points. She kind of has the beginning of one here. And then you would definitely have deeper shadows towards the bottom of the blouse where it's being tucked into the skirt. So these fold lines and any of these shapes that you've drawn, you can fill them. You can go around them. You can build other shapes with them. So you definitely want it darker at the bottom of the blouse to show that it's going into the waistband. And mine has hands, so I'm going to add cast shadows below these fingers to make it feel like there's also shadow going on below that. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. Oh, I don't know where Riley went. She disappeared. Okay, and we need to look at these sleeves. So our sleeves aren't going to be exactly the same, but we can look at it as a reference. Notice under the armpit is very dark. It's actually really dark. So you can build up your marker under here to be even darker, or go back with an even darker marker later. And I'm wrapping around the inside of this elbow. There'd definitely be some pinches and dark areas inside this elbow, all the way around. And this sleeve seems to be darker up here. Let's see, is it that way? I'm going to make it kind of match since we had to guess on our other side what's going on. I'm going to do a similar tack here. All right. So we have upper arms kind of done. I went ahead and let my my shadow push into my body up here in the armpit on the right side. And I'm trying to decide if I like it. I might shave a little bit off. Let's see. I don't love it. I'm going to take that off. I'm just going to let it fall into that edge, assuming that this arm is going behind this, that this body is in front of this arm. That way the shadow would just stop at that point. I think that looks more believable. All right, and where I have shaded along the bottom part of this arm and inside this cuff, I'm just going to go ahead and go over it again with this, with my shading, with my shading tool here. So things just start getting more dimensional when we start adding this gray. I do that, don't I? Sometimes I just let my sentences hang and I don't finish them.
I hang with them though.
Oh, good. Okay, so you're gonna watch me and do this later, Marie?
I am because I drew mine, I did it on tracing paper. So
Oh,
I need
okay.
to put it on real paper.
Got it. Got it. All right. All right, so I'm looking here at the skirt. The darkest area is here at the side, this shape over here. And then there's some strong corners here. And then it connects again and it skips down to here. There's something down here. So I'm picking and choosing my way across this. Sometimes I squint my eyes. I squint my eyes and I'm looking for those darkest areas. Where is it? There's like a very dark triangle happening in here over this thigh. It's where the fabric's bending. And there's like this angle here, the straight area here. And this is all dark as it's coming behind this thigh. And then obviously inside the skirt would be dark because the light is not reaching the inside as much as the outside. So all of this goes into shadow and it will help it be more believable that this is the inside of a skirt. And this little section here is darker. We have this little bit here. So I'm just picking my way around, and here I might make some shapes based on what I'm seeing. Some strange shapes up into the skirt part, the yoke part. My fan's running. Wonder if that means my computer's gonna give up in a minute. I hope not. Okay, since this is recorded, I'll find a way to share this with you. And I'll mention that to Jennifer. Because I can see where watching me do this again, when you have your paper all figured out, how that would be helpful. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. We are eager to learn how to do this better. We all got thrown into this teaching online, as you know. And so we've had to just figure it out. Like everyone did, I suppose. All right. So I kind of was looking at these, notice these lines going in between these panels up here. That's actually the tension of the seams, you know, it kind of pulls. So I was trying to get that mimicked across here without making it look like too much like a texture. So it's a little heavy. I'm going to soften it by kind of just going over it a bit. But I'm trying to have some of that tension there. Okay, well, almost. Okay, so now I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up here and see where I need to make an adjustment. Not too bad. I definitely see that this front edge is a little convoluted. So maybe I make this edge stronger here. So we can see that that's where this kicks up. And even though this is darker, maybe I'll get rid of a little bit of this inside and we'll lighten it up a bit. Like just put a little bit of shadow. Not as heavy, so that it feels like it's a different piece than what's back here. And actually, having said that, I'm gonna make this darker, even darker. Okay, liking that better. Okay. So that feels pretty good. The only other thing is obviously the body is not shaded here, but I don't like to shade bodies in gray because when I go to add skin tones, I don't like to have that gray undertone on skin at all. It just makes us look not alive. Your figures meaning not alive. So I like to use, when I do skin tones, I like to use 3 shades of a skin color, whichever one I'm choosing. So, and so that in similar colors, you know, so that they kind of blend into each other from light to dark. So just know that I would do that separately. I would add a little bit to the shoe because it is coming forward at us. So we probably have light at the top part and wrapping around. The sides would be the shadows, and this back one might be all the way in shadow because her foot is in the air. So it's kind of pointing down. So that whole thing might be in shadow. And you'll just kind of learn that by looking at references. This whole foot, you can actually, if you notice it, it actually is in shadow compared to the one in front. This one in front is so much lighter. And that's what happens with that back foot. Okay, so that helped to make that back foot. That she feels more grounded now that she has shading on the shoe. Okay, and then do I need to add any to this cuff? I need to add something. It's just so stark white. It just doesn't, look believable. So maybe I just do a little bit. I just made it up. I was like, well, it needs something. So that's that. And if I were to add a second round of shading, I would get a much darker marker and I would pick out these really darkest spots. So remember I said inside this arm under here, it's really dark. A little bit at this elbow. So this little bit is going to make it feel even more believable inside this sleeve. Might as well do inside this sleeve. Maybe under this arm. At the bottom of some of my folds. Under the collar. So it's not a lot. It's tiny little bits, but it just starts making the figure pop off the page even more. And we know from looking at the example that this side of her body is really dark. And this side. So she's coming into the light. Well, I don't want to fill in that space of her waistband. I want that in the light. So I'm going to keep my shadows to the edges here and then work my way down the side of it. And this side has this deep shadow in this little corner. So now you can see her really popping off this page. And what do we need down here? We need some zigzagging and a strong turn in that accordion. Maybe one down that. And then we're gonna, oh, well, let's capture this little, there is a little triangle here. It's pretty dark. And then obviously the darkest part is right here inside the thigh. So I'm going to try and make some of these shapes that I'm seeing, and I'm not zooming in because I'm trying to like keep my view on it as a whole piece, and zooming in and out, you know, you're just looking closely at one part. And so you're not always tracking the whole view. And I'm trying to keep track of that. So I am purposefully not zooming in, which makes it a little harder to plot along here because I have to really pick my spots as I'm going here. But that is okay. We're getting there. Okay. And then these bits just run into this leg. Oh yeah, that's looking better. And then what else do I need? I need the inside of this leg. There's a great shadow behind that leg right there. It's darkest here, where we're looking at the inside of the skirt. Clean up that edge. This thigh. And a couple of these lines. So this is where the light is, it is getting in there a little bit. So the more values you add from gray to black, the more convincing it gets. But you can get away with one. It looks even better with two. Okay. So I'm literally leaning back away from my page and seeing if I like it. And I'm okay. I do see this there's a little kind of line down here that I'm kind of missing from mine. And I feel like I'm too white and bright on the left side of her skirt. So I'm going to go get my other gray value and I'm going to fix it. I'm going to go and try to, even though I've left this kind of open in my drawing, it's just too much lightness, I think, compared to, I think what I'll do is I'll fill it in and then I'm going to erase it back out as a highlight. So I'm just going to make this whole thing gray. And then I'm going to go pick out my highlights with my eraser. And I think I'm going to be happier with that because I'm not loving the way this is all looking. It looks like there's too much highlight compared to what we're seeing in the image down here.
I was looking at that piece across her thigh, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a lot, right?"
Oh yeah,
there.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I agree. So let's do something about it. Okay, so now now you can't do this when you're working with real markers, right? I can't fill it all in and then erase it. What you can do is use a gel pen to sit on top. That's white. So there are workarounds. If you were working in gouache paint, you would just keep gouache paint actually sits on top of each other. So you would just add the color. Okay, so with this, I can get these strong edges. So I'm erasing my highlights back out, which looks so much better. And here I'm actually going to zoom in. So actually we can do the button too. Can we? Yeah. I'm going to highlight out these buttons by erasing a little bit. And we can start erasing some of these highlights to make it feel more angular. So the thing about her fabric is it's taffeta. And taffeta has really crisp edges, as you probably know, and it can get these pretty strong angular highlights throughout the shapes. So this takes a lot of observation though. This kind of work is, when we're doing this much fine tuning, it's a lot of really looking, where are the lights, where are the darks. You train your eye to see it. And sometimes, what you're seeing doesn't always line up with what you've drawn too, which is what I'm kind of discovering with my drawing. Like, oh, I didn't really draw it like that. So I can't exactly follow the example because it's not really looking like that. But it's getting closer. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's better. I like that better. What do you think? We captured those really lighter areas
Yeah.
across the front there. Yeah. Okay. I think so too. I like that better. All right. Well, I have 5 minutes left. What should I do to my drawing? Should I draw a face on her?
I
didn't draw my face.
Yeah, make her look alive.
Yeah, and let me get rid of some of this overspray, right, of my shadowing here. Clean it up a bit. And then I'll make her look alive with a face. Okay, let me go to my template instead of trying to redraw that face. Or trying to draw a different face, meaning. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of my eye line and my nose line, because now we know where the features are. I'm just gonna use the template. And let me get my drawing pencil in a smaller size. There we go. Okay. So even when I'm drawing eyes, I just make that top lash line darker from the get-go. And sometimes I don't even draw the bottom of the eye at all. Okay. Let's see, should I add a little bit of eyelid and nose? She has very full lips, which are fun to draw, and high cheekbones. Because this is Naomi, and she still looks like this to this day, which is utterly amazing. Okay. Strong hairlines going behind here. We could give this hair some movement. There we go. Something. Yeah, that looks better. Like she's more emotion. All right. So let me get rid of my template and put this back up to this. And there is our drawing for today. Do I want to add anything? Well, it feels funny because she doesn't have, you know, skin tone. It's a little funny to me that there's not, you know, there's no dimension on the legs or the face or anything, but you know, that's okay. All righty, so I'm going to take a screenshot of this. I will send it. I will also send the reference picture so you can draw it on your own. And I will figure out by next week if we can share this either through Zoom or load it onto YouTube unlisted so that you guys can watch this again. So I will take that on as something to figure out, but I know that I'm going to need a week because my things to do this week are quite full for the sewing room. We have lots of stuff that we're figuring out already, but we want our students to be happy and enjoy our classes, so we will make sure that that happens. Okay, I don't know what that little blip is there. Sorry. What's that?
I was saying, hit the stop recording. So I can
Okay.
show you something.
Okay, hang on. Dun, dun, dun. All right.